Rich covers the major stories from ConnectWise IT Nation Explorer and DattoCon 2019. HPE takes green like mid-market. 6 resources Ingram wishes more partners used. Optimizing VoIP and more. It's ChannelPro Weekly, episode 108. Less salt, more brilliance. Hello, everyone, and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly, episode 108. My name is Matt Whitlock, technology editor, online director, and conductor. Joining me this week and each and every week is my cohort in crime, executive editor, Mr. Rich Freeman.
Greetings, everybody. Coming to you this week from not so sunny San Diego, where I'm attending a Datto conference. I am, as folks who are watching on video can see, it's plainly evident I'm in a hotel room right now. I will say I'm on hotel Wi-Fi. We'll see how that works out. Which I'm noticing we're already getting a little bit of garbledygook. Yeah, from that connection. Well, so hopefully it'll stabilize itself there. You might have to grab a coat hanger and kind of hold it up and get better Wi-Fi reception. But yes, it looks like a very nice hotel room. We see the ice container in the back. Rich, I was talking about the ears and eyeballs in which this show was for, and that's important because if you're here to learn about how to, braid your dog's hair, this is probably not the show for you. But if you are an MSP, managed service provider, a VAR, value-added reseller, or an integrator, if you're selling IT, well, I was just selling. If you're selling, integrating, or working with IT and other businesses, this is your home. This is where you belong. We are the number one show for that. We're a lot of fun, and you're going to learn a lot. What would you say, Rich? Is that an accurate description? That sounds like a pretty accurate description of the show. And I would just say, if, by the way, you do know where there is a podcast you can learn about braiding your dog's hair, please send it along, because that would be interesting.
Rich, I'm willing to bet one search in the YouTube search bar will yield video upon video of braiding your dog's hair.
Yeah.
We probably won't have to look hard to find something like that. So, Yeah, and of course, when Rich and I were starting this video here, I got a nice little notification pop up from Google that on-air Hangouts is going away. So as soon as we settle into something that seems to work, naturally they pull it away. So this will be fun over the next, I guess, later this year. We're gonna have to start figuring out whatever wonderful new tool they're gonna put us on.
Right.
Yay! Can't wait for that. Yay! Thanks, Google. Oh my goodness! All right, so you're at a hotel. You're at DattoCon, which I know we're going to talk about later this show, right?
Yep, exactly.
Good. Yep, you're kind of going in and out there a little bit, but so if you disappear, I'll just start rambling, which I'm really, really good at. That's one of my top skills. So you're at DattoCon. You're doing that. Anything else you're doing this week? Any other fun anecdotes? Anything interesting happen?
I mean, it's pretty much been all about DattoCon this week. I got here. It's a Thursday as we record this. I got here Monday, and I have been just running around like a maniac at this show. This is a big show, by the way. And I mean, it's I forget what they said, something like 50% bigger than it was 2 years ago. They had 2,900 people total here, 2,300 MSPs. I don't know how many vendors in the expo hall, but dozens. And so just lots and lots of great stuff to do here, people to talk to and interview, and it's been busy and terrific.
Well, Datto's a company that just over the last 5 years has grown from, this to gigantic monster.
Yeah, I don't know if they'd love the word monster, but yeah, no, they are huge. They are absolutely a huge presence in the industry these days. And I'll tell you, I mean, this is as anecdotal as information gets, but just based on hallway conversations with the partners here at the show, Datto partners are as devoted to that company as they've ever been. And we'll talk a little bit about this maybe, but we're about a year and a half after they got acquired by private equity, and that's the kind of thing that can change a company, and certainly has. But I've been talking to people here, have you noticed a change? Is there anything, good or bad? And for the most part, people are saying they're not really feeling the change, and they certainly are not seeing any change in the culture at Datto and the way Datto works with its partners. So that's good news for them.
Well, Daddo seemed to have a recipe for success going. It would seem silly to start throwing a lot of salt or vanilla or other flavors at that recipe that was working so well.
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. And then, but you hope in a scenario like this that a private equity investor doesn't come in and think that they know better somehow. You know, I mean, you can imagine a new private equity owner monkeying with a formula that works, but the Datto folks chose their private equity partner pretty carefully, and everything I'm seeing and hearing suggests that the folks at Vista Equity Partners are being pretty smart about how they handle this investment.
Well, I'd hope so, right? I mean, it's not like Datto was stagnant when they were bought.
No, not at all.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. If Datto's a souffle that's rising, don't open the oven. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And I've actually never made a souffle. I don't even know if that analogy works, but let's just pretend that it does.
Yeah.
But all you master chefs out there, if I'm wrong, then well, just let me know in the comments, and I will update my souffle baking analogy accordingly.
Yeah. There are people out in the audience right now thinking you're supposed to open the oven, you idiot.
Probably depends on what temperature the oven's at, and whether or not there's egg, and whether you use sea salt or Himalayan salt, or it wasn't until the other day, Rich, I realized that there's now so many different kinds of salt they sell. I just thought like salt was salt, like sodium chloride, but no. We have all different kinds depending on which beach off the coast of Chile that it was created, and they've got what other kinds of salts they have? I was in the grocery store and there was like 100 million different kinds of salt. I'm like, I just want salt.
Yeah. As a gift, some friends of mine gave me this 6-pack of like artisanal Seattle region salt. And I mean, it was a lovely gift, very thoughtful. Thank you, folks. But it's like, what am I going to do with 6 different varieties of salt exactly?
So can you, have you sampled these salts? Can you tell the difference? Because I can't. I believe actually just my internet actually went out. So, but we're back online. We're back live. I see the streaming here. It says the chat. Oh, the chat is back online now. Awesome. So good. I'll pop that out so I can throw some links in as we go. Well, that was exciting, Rich. Nothing like a little technical difficulty to start off a show.
Yeah. So last thing I recall, we were talking about salt.
Yeah, well, and what's funny? I asked you. I said, of all the salts that you've sampled, can you taste the difference?
Right.
And then your head went back like this, like you were in deep thought, and you froze. And I thought I blew up your brain. But apparently not. Apparently my internet here in good old rural Illinois is just finicky.
It was a profound question, by the way, but that wasn't the issue.
And if we had anybody in the chat here yet, they'd probably say, "Why the hell are you talking about salt?" Yeah. Good Lord. All right. So, well, we do actually have a lot to talk about. I'm going to go ahead and post a link here in the chat to our first story here. So we are going to start off by talking about burning questions about ConnectWise. Now, they're not actually on fire. These are just like questions that we really wanted to ask them, not pyrotechnics. Are they related to fire or their fire suppression system in their building?
There are no flames involved in this story, I'm afraid.
Okay, well, that's probably for the better.
Probably, yeah. No, I think that's good. So no flames, but some interesting stuff. So I'm in San Diego. I'm at Datto's show, but just a few days ago I was at a ConnectWise conference in Orlando. Their IT Nation Explore event. This used to be known as Automation Nation. And it's basically their technical event. So they have 2 really big conferences they do now at ConnectWise, and the one in October, November is more for the business owners, and it's about business strategy. The June event, which is now called IT Nation Explorer, is sort of for the technicians and the service managers and the folks who are really living in the RMM and the PSA tool. But for me, this was my first chance to sit down with ConnectWise executives since that company was acquired by Thoma Bravo, the private equity investor. That was in February. So it's just been a few months, but sort of a first chance to kind of see what's going on in that quarter or so since a very big change in the history and the status of this company. And the really, really short answer to that question would be everything and nothing. So, I mean, I asked everybody, how have things changed? How does it feel? Does it feel different now that you're owned by private equity? And the answer basically was, in a lot of ways, nothing has changed. There was a strategy for the company's future in place before the acquisition, and Thoma Bravo has not changed that. They're still headed down the exact same path they were headed down before. The big difference is just that they are headed down that path faster. And this was something that everybody at a senior level in the company said to me in my interviews with them, is just that there is this new kind of rigor and speed to everything they do at ConnectWise these days. And one of the product executives, I think it was Jeff Bishop, the chief product officer, was saying, partly facetiously, but only partly facetiously, that 4 or 5 months ago, he and the people on his team didn't really know how to write an executive memo, and now they've all gotten really good at it. There's just this sort of seriousness to the way that they do things. There is a lot of accountability from the Thoma Bravo folks in terms of what's getting done and when it gets done and deadlines and something like that. Nobody felt stressed about that from what I could pick up, or was unhappy about it. In fact, the vibe, the tone of what they said was that this is good. This is, we are taking the next step in our evolution as a company, and we need to be more rigorous in terms of how we do things to pull that off. But that I think is the big change at the company right now. It's not what they do, their strategy, where they're going. It's just how quickly they do it. And for their partners, that's mostly good news, right? Is if you're looking forward to items on the product roadmaps, for example, you'll probably see those show up sooner than might have been the case before. One of the things that always comes up when a company like ConnectWise gets acquired by private equity and suddenly has access to big pools of money that it didn't have access to before, what's the merger and acquisition story? They haven't actually done anything like that in the few months that they've been with Thoma Bravo, but that this is coming. This is coming. Obviously, nobody's going to talk with me in specifics about that, but it did come up in a conversation that there are discussions, not necessarily deals near closure, but they are in discussions with at least 6 different security vendors right now that could be merger and acquisition targets. Security is their main M&A focus right now, but not the only one. I think it's safe to predict over the course of the next 12 months, I'm going to be reporting on some pretty serious merger and acquisition activity at ConnectWise. And they made it clear that some of those companies are very small and some of them are not. So it'll be interesting to see how big they are.
You get any word on which ones they might be thinking about, or they weren't talking?
Oh yeah, no, there's no way they're there. I mean, it surprised me a little bit that they were even willing to give me the number 6 and say that it's in security. I mean, I couldn't even get them to talk about what categories within security. But they certainly weren't talking about specific names. But they're
well, it wouldn't be hard to figure out, right? I mean, how many security companies are left that haven't already been bought?
You know what? There are a ton of them. I'm trying to remember where I got this statistic from. Recently, somebody I was interviewing, but there are 1,300 security vendors out there that are sort of trackable right now. So that it's a target-rich environment if you're in the M&A market. But if you did want to narrow it down, you could sort of think a little bit about what kind of security vendor would it make sense for a ConnectWise to buy. And I think you would be looking for companies that are in that same kind of operational efficiency realm where they normally live, RMM, PSA, So maybe SIM, SIEM, or a SOC. But we would be speculating. I don't want to speculate too much, but I don't think, just as a for example, I don't think they'll buy an antivirus vendor. Could be wrong, but I suspect they won't do that. It'll be more in the realm of security management and optimization tools and stuff like that, I think, as opposed to the actual, security safeguards.
Makes sense. Yeah.
One other interesting note, and this is just an illustration of my naivete. As I was interviewing a lot of these people, I was kind of asking them, are you hiring? Do you have money for new resources? And in reality, nobody knows exactly. Nobody else who was not directly involved with it knows exactly how much Thoma Bravo paid for ConnectWise, but we do know it was well north of $1 billion. And even when a company like Thoma Bravo spends, that kind of money, they've got to borrow basically to pull that off. And when there's borrowing involved, they're not looking to add headcount. And in fact, when the deal was announced, it was also announced that there were 70 some odd ConnectWise employees who were going to be let go in connection with the deal as they sort of shifted some seats around. So they're not actually staffing up at ConnectWise right now. It's kind of silly of me to be asking about that. But that winds up having an interesting implication for our readers, potentially. So they do have new staff requirements at ConnectWise. They just can't necessarily hire new people to fill them. So they have this big, kind of ambitious sounding center of excellence, it's called. They've got a building under construction right now where they're going to be setting up these labs and schools where they're going to teach MSPs and VARs how to be more efficient MSPs and how to open a cybersecurity practice. And they need instructors to run this facility. So what they're doing to get the instructors, instead of hiring new people, is moving some of their existing staff out of this group within ConnectWise that for a long time has been responsible for onboarding new partners. And they're turning those folks into center of excellence instructors. And they are outsourcing all that onboarding work to partners. So they're actually certifying and hiring some of their partners who they think are, especially good at using the ConnectWise system to go out and help other new ConnectWise partners set up the system and get on board and optimize their configuration. And this is open potentially to anyone. There, like I said, there's a certification you've got to earn. But I mean, if you are a real ConnectWise wizard and you would like to get some business directly from ConnectWise, helping other ConnectWise users roll that system out, that is an opportunity available to you now.
Now, if you are a ConnectWise wizard, do you have to carry a wand?
Have to carry? I don't think that's required. I haven't checked the requirements on the certification. That could be in there, but I don't think it is.
Well, we need more wands in this world, and cloaks. Cloaks need to come back as a style choice. And
pointy hats.
I'm going to miss on the pointy hats, actually. but the wands and the cloaks are good. Now, of your other burning questions, did you also ask them what kind of salt they use in their cafeteria?
It didn't come up, but I'll know better for next time.
Those are the important, the real important burning questions.
Yes.
That we need to know. What else did you ask them? Anything else of interest?
I guess one other small thing. There were a number of different questions there, but if you are a member of the ConnectWise ecosystem, as they call it, if you're one of the many vendors, 247 vendors out there right now integrate with ConnectWise software in one way or another, and that is the ConnectWise ecosystem. And if you're a member of the ecosystem and you hear Rich Freeman say that they're in negotiations with, or discussions at least, with 6 different security vendors, and you're in the security space, this might make you nervous. There was a great deal of emphasis placed on the fact that they are not moving away from the ecosystem. They're not breaking up the ecosystem. In fact, they made an announcement at the show. They sort of officially rolled out this new online marketplace that makes it easier for ConnectWise partners to buy software from some of these ecosystem members. So They made a point of emphasizing that just because they will be buying up other companies doesn't mean that they have changed their basic approach to the market, which is to partner with as many different vendors out there as they can.
Good. I'm sure that'll make a lot of ConnectWise folks more comfortable as they shop for their wands and cloaks. Yeah. All right. Good. Well, there's a lot of other things in that particular piece. We got a link to it here in the chat in the video. We'll also put a link to it on our show notes page, which you can find at channelpronetwork.com. You'll find the link there for all kinds of downloads, and you'll find our show page for this particular episode, and you can find it there, along with all the other stories that we're talking about today. Now, also about ConnectWise, you talked about security. Now, I see this as a separate item here on our sheet. Do we cover that enough, or do you want to dive a little bit deeper into their top priority about security?
I'll discuss that briefly because this is a little bit different than what we talked about. So there is a separate story that I posted some days back that just talks about what's going on in the security segment for ConnectWise, and it mentions the mergers and acquisitions and some of the stuff that they've done in the last 6 months or so to build up a cybersecurity business within ConnectWise, just in terms of services and products that they're selling to MSPs to help MSPs become cybersecurity service providers themselves. But the one thing mentioned in that article that's probably worth noting right now is just that they are also just internally making investments and placing an increased emphasis on security in terms of their own products, just making their own products more secure. And we've spoken on the podcast before about the fact that MSPs are really increasingly becoming targets for hackers right now. Hackers have sort of figured out that if you can break into an MSP's RMM and PSA software, that becomes an avenue to breaking into all sorts of different SMB networks. Every customer supported by that MSP is at risk if you can compromise the MSP. You take that up one more level. If you can break into ConnectWise's software, then you can access all their MSPs. Companies like ConnectWise are very much in the crosshairs right now. And ConnectWise there was a ransomware incident last month. We wrote on ChannelPro about something that happened involving a plugin from Kaseya about 6 months or so ago. So they have some experience with security issues there, and it's not just them; it's companies like them as well. So they are in the process of taking some steps to mitigate that threat a little bit. They're putting security specialists into all the different product groups to kind of make sure that there's somebody who really thinks about nothing but security, participating in all the design and development conversations. They've got this training program underway now to really teach all their developers and product managers secure development best practices. So it's not as if they were lax about security before, but I think they've had a wake-up call maybe recently, and they're really kind of doubling down on making sure that they're keeping their software and the people who use it safe.
Yeah, so not just going after the one who holds a lot of keys, but the key maker.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. You definitely got to keep security top of mind. And we're seeing these stories all over the place, with the ransomware. And I think there was was it Baltimore, or there was a city somewhere on the East Coast that they finally had to cough up like a little over $500,000 to get all their computers unlocked after a month.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't aware that they had paid, but yeah, Baltimore did get struck by a very, very serious ransomware attack. Yeah, and it happened in Atlanta not all that long ago, and yeah.
Yeah, you gotta be careful. You gotta have a backup and disaster recovery plan in place, so that way we don't give the nefarious more money. Because if we give the nefarious more money, they're gonna keep doing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion. And they don't take salt. They want cash.
Right. Yeah. Or cryptocurrency, but
which is money. They want money.
Yeah.
Speaking of, did you put on the show sheet to talk about Facebook's new cryptocurrency?
No, actually, that is not on the show sheet.
We should We should maybe talk about that one. Maybe not today, because I know we're going to already be kind of running up against a hard stop in a little while, especially with a little technical problem we had in the beginning. But yeah, Facebook wants to dip their fingers into everything, don't they?
Yeah, well, and judging by our recent conversation about their workplace product, I'm going to guess you are all in on that. There's
Yes.
nothing you would like more than for Facebook to own your money.
Yeah, I'm cashing out all my shares now and buying Libra.
Yeah.
Because I want Facebook to know every place and everywhere and every one I give any amount of money to. Yeah, that's a good one. All right, we should maybe get somebody on who's smarter about cryptocurrency than me to have that conversation. Practices and portfolio strategy. I assume that this is also related to ConnectWise.
I'm just looking at the show sheet. What are we talking about here?
Practices and portfolio
that's
strategy.
What we were just talking about there.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it was a separate link. So it was a separate story. I didn't put the link out. So let me put the link out. So while I put the link out, you can kind of revisit briefly what that was about.
That was about the redoubled seriousness about security development best practices inside ConnectWise and some of the resources they're building into the product groups right now, just to make sure that everything, as their products become targeted more and more often, they want to lock those products down that much more tightly.
Yeah. Okay, good. So that link is out there. If you're listening in the audio version, go to the show notes page, have that up while you listen, so you can kind of check out these different stories as we go. We will not post a link to your local grocery store's salt selections. We'll just allow you to browse. I have an obsession with salt today. I don't know what's going on. All right. So Rich, now on to kind of the more immediate story, kind of where you're at and why is you're at DattoCon 2019. Daddo, for those, because I'm sure nobody's heard of them before. They make stuff, backup and disaster recovery was kind of their claim to fame, but they're also now heavily into the RMM business, and they're dabbling in the networking space and more, as I'm sure you're going to start to talk about. So, Rich, tell us about their updated and expanded BDR portfolio, which really is their core product.
Although it's grown so varied, they have so many different products that sort of fit very loosely under that BDR flag that it's actually kind of interesting, kind of impressive how many different ways and different tools they have for helping you back stuff up. I'm going to say 2 years ago, at this point, Datto announced that they were going to try to time a lot of their product announcements to coincide with their DattoCon events. So the DattoCon I'm at this week in San Diego is their North American DattoCon. They also do one in Europe about 6 months from now every year. And they sort of save up product news for those two shows. And my, oh my, they had a ton of it this week. It was actually difficult just keeping up with it all, let alone trying to write about it all. So I pulled a few things together into an article about some of these BDR platform updates. So if you think about Datto and BDR, people who've been partnering with them for a long time probably think about Cirrus. Cirrus is sort of their flagship BDR appliance-based business continuity disaster recovery solution. So they released Cirrus 4 at the show this week. That is the first significant update to the Cirrus platform in 3 years. Much faster specs, faster Intel processors inside, smaller form factor, quieter, cooler. They replaced a lot of plastic parts on the inside with metal ones. Kind of interesting, actually. I mean, they pay very, very close attention at Datto, apparently, to the support team and the calls and complaints that the support team gets from the MSPs about what's broken and what's not working, and they learn from that. What can we upgrade? What do we need to upgrade? And that's why a lot of these plastic parts got replaced by metal ones. So If you are using the Cirrus product, you've got this brand new Cirrus 4 to take a look at. There's also in the PC backup kind of realm a brand new product from Datto. It's probably the single most interesting product announcement that they made at the show from my point of view, and it's called Cloud Continuity for PCs. It's a brand new product. This is a direct-to-cloud backup product for PCs. There's no appliance or anything like that involved. And the idea basically is that, you know, in the event that you lose a laptop or a device breaks, you can virtualize a complete image of that system up in Datto's cloud. And, you know, if you get yourself to essentially to any device with a web browser, you can be back up and running and productive on your device, your image, you know, just as quickly as that that virtual machine is up and running. So Datto has had, and there are a lot of other vendors that have PC backup, like endpoint backup products. And Datto has a product that they inherited with Autotask when those two companies merged called File Protection. And that will back up files, it'll back up folders, and this new Cloud Continuity product will do that as well. But only this Cloud Continuity product will back up an entire PC image, and only this Cloud Continuity product will let you virtualize and run off of that image while you or the folks in the IT department are getting a new device ready for somebody who is out of commission because their desktop blew up.
Right, and can you restore from that back to hardware, or is it just a VM? Well, I mean, if you're making changes in your VM, I think you'd want those to be replicated on the device when you get it. So I would assume you can restore, but maybe not. I don't know.
I mean, maybe not. But I suspect very, very strongly it works exactly from that standpoint. It works exactly the way it does when you're dealing with a busted server. That you are restoring from the virtual image.
Cool. That's nice that it doesn't have to have an appliance in the middle there. I wonder if that's more indicative to the direction Datto wants to go. Although I'm sure they'll still offer some on-prem options, but it seems like if you're going to offer something as a service, not having hardware installed locally is kind of an easier management position than the other opposite, right?
Yeah, this is something that I spoke with the Datto folks about a little bit, and Tim Weller, the CEO of the company, even talked very briefly about this at the beginning of his keynote. From a long-term perspective, appliances are going away in the BDR space. Now, I mean, we're talking about a development that is at least 5 years off in the distance before the connectivity is fast enough and reliable enough and so on that you don't really need that local appliance any longer. But it's very much on the radar, on the roadmap at Datto. They sort of understand that you need an appliance today. This will not be true forever. And in fact, they kind of pointed to this Cloud Continuity product as their first little step in that direction. They're beginning to learn about how to deliver BDR services without an appliance involved. And what they learn from this product will help them down the road when they're doing that for everything that they protect.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, that's a big investment to offer direct-to-cloud disaster recovery. When a local appliance takes a lot of that burden off of having all the cloud resources. But yeah, it definitely seems like that would be the direction that they'd want to go over time. And also, it seems like that would also be the direction partners would want to go over time. I could be wrong with that, but I would think that'd be easier, right?
Yeah, I mean, anytime you're removing hardware from the client side, basically, it's a win for the MSP. And even SMBs these days, they're already kind of looking for ways to get hardware off-site, essentially, and up into the cloud. So. It is probably something that MSPs would welcome. They will welcome it when they really trust the broadband that their customers are using and the cloud that they're relying on. As soon as you don't feel like you're compromising availability, then by all means.
Yeah. And imagine if you're in a place with 500 devices, that's a lot of bandwidth to chew up with BDR. But, between all the other cloud services that businesses are consuming these days, I mean, productivity is in the cloud primarily, and file sync and share is in the cloud, and antivirus is in the cloud, and everything's in the cloud. Your head's in the cloud. I know that's where I live, in the clouds, where it's puffy. And humid, I guess.
So $7 per PC per month for the cloud continuity product. So, I mean, you may or may not, if you're an SMB, you may or may not apply this to every PC you own. But to the ones you worry about, maybe the boss's PC, or the ones that are roaming a lot, the people who most need to be continuously up and running, $7 a PC a month.
That's very reasonable.
Yeah, and of course the MSPs will mark that up, but still, it's not.
That question on that though, does that include whether or not is it extra if you have to actually spin it up and run it virtually?
No. So now it covers up to 1 terabyte of data. Up to a year of retention for that data, no overage charges, and no extra charges for either virtualization or recovery. So
why? Tell me. Why would somebody not just say, "Hey, Datto's now in the virtualized desktop space," if they're not charging you to run your desktop in the cloud?
Yeah, what's interesting about that question, 2 years ago at DattoCon, they and I don't want to make more of this than it might sound like I'm trying to, but there was this demo at DattoCon 2 years ago of a product that they were kind of sort of calling Datto Desktop, which was a virtual desktop solution that they had kind of cooked up in their lab. And it got a reaction from the audience, unlike anything I think I've ever seen from a demo at any conference I've ever gone to. I mean, people were like really excited about this product because it felt like a virtual desktop solution in the cloud that actually worked. And so people were really intrigued by it and so on. It's still, to the extent that they're still kind of working on it, which is a little hard to tell. It's still in the lab, and it doesn't sound like a release is imminent. I asked their chief product officer about that. It sounds like, they're still kind of working on it. But I've got to believe there's some connection between Datto Desktop and this cloud continuity product in terms of the underlying technology there. So, I mean, in a sense, they are kind of sort of, in the virtual desktop space. But I don't know. To answer the question you just asked, does somebody from Datto call you up if you've been running a PC in their cloud for 6 months? I'm not sure, but I'm guessing there's some sort of policy in place to prevent that from happening.
I ask the hard questions. I don't know.
Yeah.
See, anytime there's a service, I always think about, well, how are people going to abuse it?
Right.
What I mean? I guess if they're not allowing you to probably directly install an OS into a cloud, you'd have to, in this case, you probably have to originate from a device. But
yeah,
you could originate from a device and just roll in the cloud for $7 a month, which is actually pretty cheap if it works. A little too cheap.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah. We'll see how people use and abuse it, and see if they come back and say, well, you get 2 hours of virtualized desktop time a month with that, we'll see.
Right.
Who knows? But that it's exciting. But for people who are all about Datto as an RMM and PSA tool, are there things for you?
So one of the new things from Datto that originated in 2018 is they have gone on to a quarterly rhythm with their RMM and PSA updates. So it used to be they would come when they come, and quite often there were sort of these big bang releases with lots and lots of different features to digest. They're in a quarterly rhythm now. 4 times a year, you're going to get an update to each of those products. There will be interesting, sometimes really significant updates in those new releases, but they'll come in smaller batches that are a little bit easier to deal with. And so in conjunction with DattoCon, we have new quarterly updates for the Datto RMM and Autotask PSA products. Just maybe to kind of hit some highlights, because there actually were a lot of.
So I was looking, there was quite a few for a quarterly update.
Yeah, and honestly, there were more than I wrote about, just because there are limits to how much you can throw into an article like this. But on the RMM side, the thing that I think got the most attention from attendees here, and it's actually in beta now, but next quarter, at some point this summer, it'll probably go into general availability. They introduced a new HTML5 remote control technology. And the idea is basically, if you're out in the field, you need to remote into a device, you can do that from any device you have with you with a browser. You don't have to have an agent of any kind on the device with you in order to be able to take remote control of a customer's endpoint. And I know there were a lot of MSPs at the show here who were really excited about that. And they demoed it, obviously, at the conference. It looks really fast. They certainly say it's very fast. So it's in beta now. That beta is open to everyone. If you are a Datto partner, a Datto RMM user, and curious about this, you can get involved in the beta yourself and check it out. Trying to see, what else did they have on the RMM side? There was something else there that was kind of significant. I guess there were some UI changes on that side. On the PSA side, the big thing is a pretty significant update to their Live Mobile app. So the Live Mobile is the mobile app for the PSA system, and again, for technicians and folks who are out in the field and visiting customers and so on. It's a pretty important tool. It has been based up until now on sort of a web page foundation. I mean, essentially, it's an app, it's on your phone, but really you're consuming web pages. It wasn't a true native iOS or Android app. That is changing now. So they have new editions of Live Mobile for iOS and Android. Both of those are native mobile apps. They are beginning to take advantage of some of the UI changes that Datto has been implementing in the desktop tools. So on the iOS side, the ticketing interface that will be familiar to PSA users, you're going to see that reflected in this new edition of Live Mobile. That'll be coming to the Android edition as well, maybe 3 or so months down the line, they're saying, but there are some other interface updates on the Android side too. So the expectation is this will be a faster, more intuitive, more truly mobile-friendly kind of experience for people who use the Live Mobile app.
Good, yeah, and nobody really likes the big bang updates. It's nice that they're kind of keeping everything digestible, even though these are for quarterly updates are pretty good size. Can you imagine if they were just pushing one update a year? That'd be unfathomable. Yeah,
exactly. I think, if I remember right, there was something like, at least 20 different updates to the PSA system the last time they did one of these quarterly release, or maybe 2. I think I'm thinking of the update they did last November. But even what qualifies as a small batch has lots of changes. If you were to do that once a year, it would be pretty enormous.
Yeah. All right. Good. Anything else, Datto, that you want to discuss? There's lots to talk about, I'm sure.
There is. I guess maybe 2 things. Just quickly on the networking side, they did introduce a new line of network switches at the show. These new devices. This is basically the next generation of their E-series switches. So they have 2 series, the E series and the L series. The L series is more modestly priced and modestly spec'd. The E series is a little bit more robust, and the new E310 series of switches that debuted at the conference here this week adds layer 3 functionality to the existing layer 2.
I caught that. Yeah, that's a pretty bold move right there.
And that got some applause from the audience when they announced it at the show. I think people are pretty excited about that. So yeah, that's pretty interesting. And there's also a new network management, or let's just call it a management interface for the Datto networking product line. They had a tool before. It was something that they inherited with OpenMesh, the networking device maker that they bought in 2017, and it was really just kind of designed for use by anybody, an IT department, a consumer, whatever. This new tool that they call network management is specifically designed ground up for MSPs. And so there's some functionality in there that hasn't been available before, but that IPs care about. Things like audit logging, for example, alerting, and the tunable alerting, and just the whole experience is designed to be a little bit more familiar to technicians in terms of where you find stuff and control stuff. So there's that. And then I'll just quickly say, Datto has about 15,000 partners right now. Apparently about 2,000 of them are selling the networking products of one kind or another. And that, the number is growing. I was talking with Rob Ray, their vice president of business development, yesterday, and he said that's about 2,000 out of 15,000, maybe a year and a half into the existence of the networking product line, feels about right to him. This is not necessarily an easy product category to just jump into if you have some other vendor you've been working with for a long time. He said, the finance guys would probably like to see that number bigger and the networking line sort of growing faster. But from his perspective, this is about where you would expect it to be, and he's okay with that, 2,000.
So what I don't understand, though, is we got an article about switches, 8, 24, 48 port models, and in the article we just got a picture of some dude standing there. Where are the pictures of the switches?
You're a hardware guy, Matt. Yeah, you don't care about John Tippett. That dude is the head of the Datto networking product.
Unless I'm plugging stuff into his brain, I want to see hardware.
Yeah, well, Datto.com. There are, I'm sure, pictures right there.
Oh, I just like to give you a hard time,
sure.
But I do want to see the switches. They make nice hardware. They really do make nice hardware.
Yeah.
So I bet it's lovely. Maybe in the future we could have pictures of pretty things on our website. But I don't want to talk about pictures on the website right now because that is not a fun thing to talk about. And we're not going to get into that, Rich.
Yeah, that's right. That's a behind-the-scenes story at ChannelPro, folks.
Yeah, which I don't know. Maybe if there's time at the end, we can talk about what we're calling Operation Thanos. We'll talk about that later, maybe. Because all you podcast listeners are kind of our insiders. Very in tune to the workings behind ChannelPro. You might be interested in some of that, but we'll talk about that later. We got other stories to discuss. Now, Rich, I do have one other question because I like to know, how was the food at DattoCon?
Great question. It was good. Yeah. They spare no expense here at Datto. I mean, here's an interesting little aside, and we didn't talk about this at all, actually. The main sort of product related keynotes, all that stuff happened on Tuesday morning. Yesterday, Wednesday morning at the show, Austin McCord came out and spoke for about 40 minutes or so. And really, he was just sort of updating people on what he's been up to. And it was fun and it was funny. And I remember taking a note to myself when I was watching this, that this is a man having the time of his life. He has taken some of the money he made after selling the company and bought a 4-story building not far from his home in Connecticut and turned it into like the ultimate sort of robot building geek man cave. And he's having a great time. And it was a lot of fun, actually, just watching this presentation. But before he came out, just to warm the crowd up on a Wednesday morning, Snoop Dogg came out all of a sudden on stage.
I caught that. That's kind of a weird. It was a weird one for an IT crowd.
I mean, people just loved it. It was completely unexpected. 9 a.m, there's Snoop Dogg on stage performing, and he performed for about 2-3 minutes. Everybody went nuts. He waved and took off, and out came Austin to give his talk. But just kind of an illustration of they're not afraid of spending money on DattoCon, and so that's maybe one reason why the food was pretty good.
Yeah, I would imagine that. Now, here's another thing, Rich. We're going to talk about culture here for a second.
Mm-hmm.
So bear with me. All right, because I saw a picture of Snoop Dogg at DattoCon,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of taken from the back a little bit, and the sea of people, Snoop Dogg on the stage. Nobody enjoys anything anymore. Everybody has to whip their phones out.
I know.
And hold them above their head, and they're kind of like trying to stage it. So it's like you're there in a moment, in an experience that you're ignoring in order to capture it on a cell phone.
I know.
And it wasn't like three people. It was like everybody had their phones out. Like, can we just enjoy it and just have the memory of actually soaking in a moment?
Yeah.
Or are you the kind of person that like, you're like, oh my God, that's blah. And then you're like, out comes the phone. Like, you don't strike me as that kind of individual.
And normally I am not. In this particular case, I was so sort of blown away to suddenly find myself, 30 yards away from Snoop Dogg at 9 a.m. on a weekday that I did pull out my phone and take a bunch of pictures. And our colleague, ChannelPro associate publisher Joel Zadespinner was sitting next to me, and he was shooting videos, but normally,
a couple pictures is one thing, you know. Like even when I was at that Lenovo show, they had Barenaked Ladies perform, and they were there for like a good hour and a half, right? So I did at one point take my phone out and I shot like 30 seconds of video to send to my wife to show her, hey, look, this it's a band that we both liked even before then. So I sent it to her, but then I put my phone away. And I enjoyed the music, whereas like there were people that were just like this the whole time.
Right. Yeah.
Which is just weird. I don't know if I understand that.
Yeah. No, I honestly, when I am on vacation, I don't even take lots of pictures anymore. I have the same thought, basically. I kind of want to be in the experience and not capturing the experience. So yeah, ordinarily I'm not a giant picture taker, but in this situation, I did take a bunch of pictures actually.
Well, and a few pictures is fine, and to each their own. Everyone, I get it, because there's the whole social aspect that people are probably like, well, Matt, I'm not actually just recording it; I'm Facebook streaming it live, and it's like, great, so you're doing all the work so that way other people can enjoy the thing that you should be enjoying. That's how I would look at it, but. I just, there was a simpler time, Rich. Simpler time when there was one kind of salt and nobody had their phones out recording everything to probably never go back and watch again. So not only did they miss it, they're really never going to record it. They're never going to watch it. So I just don't get it. I'm being very, very reflective today.
Yeah, kids today.
Kids, these darn young whippersnappers, how dare they take on their phones everywhere? All right.
Put fancy salt and everything.
Damn Himalaya. My salt didn't come from Himalaya. Came from a cave. Okay. Oh, boy, Rich. Okay. Hewlett Packard Enterprise. We have other stories, not just ones about Datto and ConnectWise. But Hewlett Packard Enterprise extends their this is a big one. Their Green Lake. They've been working hard on this flex capacity program deeper into mid-market. So not everybody's going to be ultimately familiar with Green Lake. So you have to kind of say where it was and why this is a move, like where they're pushing it now and what it means.
Yeah. And what's interesting about this, so like I said, Joel and I were at DattoCon. Our boss, Michael Siggins, ChannelPro publisher Michael Siggins, was at a Tech Data event this week. We couldn't find somebody to go to Hewlett Packard Enterprise's Discover conference, but that was another major conference going on this week, and there was actually a lot of news out of the Discover event. But one that I kind of dived into a little bit from afar has to do with extending Green Lake into further into, let's say, the mid-market. So Green Lake is a consumption-priced managed infrastructure offering from Hewlett Packard Enterprise. Basically, their strategy for allowing customers to buy compute, buy storage, buy networking, buy all the stuff that they do on an as-a-service kind of basis. And it, as often happens at companies like HP, it really kind of started out targeted at the enterprise. Originally, it was available exclusively from HPE itself. You had to buy it direct from HPE. Last year, I believe it was, they opened GreenLake up to the channel, so channel partners can resell GreenLake services right now. And what they announced this year at Discover is that they are adding some new resources, new options to GreenLake that are specifically targeted at, it's still mid-market companies, but somewhat smaller mid-market companies, essentially. So they're extending the reach of the product to a broader range of mid-sized buyers.
It was pretty focused on high enterprise for the most part.
Yeah.
Last year when I was covering it, so it's nice that it's trickling down, and that's kind of what this is a push to bring it more down market, right?
That's exactly right. And now, of course, the obvious question when you talk about it trickling down and taking it down market is how much further does it go? And they basically told me not too much further. They're not convinced, at least yet, that the economics of taking it into the S of SMB are ever really going to make sense for them or for the customers. And they have other subscription kinds of programs for smaller businesses that they think are probably going to be a better fit there. But this does open up the product to a wider span of businesses.
Yeah. What? Yeah. I don't know if the S side wants consumption-based pricing for infrastructure anyway. That doesn't seem like it would be a good fit, but I don't know. Maybe.
Yeah, no, I mean, if you look at the big distributors right now, and I mean, they all have and are continually expanding these infrastructure, technology as a service is typically how they'll call these programs, technology as a service offerings. So, I mean, in general, from small businesses all the way up, there is a desire among end users to pay for infrastructure the same way that they pay for software. But that's different. That's not necessarily the same as consumption pricing, right? A lot of people buy service, you buy a lot of software on a all you can eat monthly offering, not necessarily like every time I type a letter into Word, it charges me 0.0008 cents. Right. So there's a little bit of a difference, but I suspect if HP is going to take GreenLake further down market, I suspect they're going to let their partners do it more effectively than they will do it. They'll be like, hey, you can sign up anybody, make sure they're the right fit before you do it. Right. Yeah. No, that's an interesting thought, actually.
Because they're not going to want to push that. They're not going to want to focus on that. That's not their thing. But they could let their partners do it. Maybe. I don't know. I could be wrong. I'm wrong a lot, Rich. Especially about salt.
Yeah. The GreenLake business, by the way, it comes up in the article, is growing very, very quickly for them, and particularly within the channel. So they will not.
Well, that's good. What changes did they make? Did they talk about that? Like, now it's good for mid-market. So what did they add? What did they change? What did they do to make this more attractive to the mid-level?
I think really it's just scaling the different packages, essentially, that you can choose from. The way they put it, the wording that they used in my interview with them was just sort of reducing the footprint of what it is that you're buying so that it's more appropriately scaled and appropriately priced to a somewhat smaller a company with somewhat smaller capacity requirements. I mean, what I'm doing here is a little bit awkward, I think, from an HPE standpoint. I kept asking them when I was interviewing them about this. I kept asking questions in terms of, how big a business, how many employees, and they don't really think about it that way. They think about this in terms of capacity requirements. So from their perspective, it's not really a question of, were we selling to enterprises? Were we selling to mid-sized businesses? It's like we were selling to businesses with a certain, beyond a certain threshold in terms of the capacity they required. And some of those businesses were mid-sized. Some of them may have been small, but maybe they're in the video production business or something, and they have enormous capacity requirements. So they kind of think about what they're doing here just in terms of making the resources in GreenLake available in smaller increments, I guess, to open it up to more potential buyers.
And maybe if they do a more S-focused product, maybe it won't be GreenLake. Maybe it'll be Blue Lake.
Blue Lake.
Right, or Green River.
Right, yeah. Green Pond.
Green Pond. Yeah, we just got to scale. So we're not a lake anymore. Now we're like the little backyard koi pond.
Yeah.
Dyed purple pond. See, the double P. There's a whole marketing campaign right behind that, Rich.
It's got to be green, though. It's got to be green. Green.
Well, that is kind of their color, right? So maybe green pond, green koi, green river, green stream. That rhymes. Anything that rhymes is marketable.
Green wading pool doesn't sound good, but yeah.
I love it. Oh, that's funny stuff. Okay. I don't think we need to talk about GreenLake anymore, but that is exciting. It's been interesting to see what they do with that. And as these hyperscale consumption-based pricing kind of services and models grow, it'll be interesting to see how they grow into the market, who's utilizing them, and all that kind of stuff. All right. I like this one. 6 resources Ingram Micro really truly, not really, really truly wishes more partners used. Rich, I like stories like this. And here's why, is because distributors do a lot. They really, really do. And it does seem that when I talk to partners when I talk to distributors, it seems like, yeah, we offer all this great stuff and nobody knows about it. So what 6 things did Ingram focus on?
And I won't talk about all 6 here, just, time constraints and so on. But I mean, you're absolutely right. As long as I have been reporting on distributors, this phenomenon has come up over and over and over again. It's got to be the biggest frustration for somebody who works at a company like Ingram Micro or Tech Data or Synex, that they have all these resources that they're either introducing or expanding and enhancing, augmenting all the time. And people don't know the resources are out there. People don't take advantage of them, and they keep trying to tell the story and communicate, and it doesn't change. So this is just a perennial issue for those folks. And the last time we recorded one of these webcasts, I was either at or had just returned home from an Ingram Micro conference in Buffalo. And that was where I spoke about this phenomenon with the Ingram people most recently. And just each of the executives I interviewed at that show, I sort of asked, just give me something you do that is really cool and that not nearly enough people take advantage of. And I'll give you just a few kind of random examples here. So you have the ability as an Ingram partner to invite a subject matter expert from Ingram onto the calls that you do with your customers. So if you are doing a call, you're selling a storage solution, a networking solution, maybe it involves a technology or a scenario that you're not super confident in. Obviously, it's always been possible to get information and advice from Ingram, maybe take a training course from them or get connected to one from the vendor through them. But you can actually get one of their, say, storage subject matter experts on the call. This person will present themselves to your customer as being part of your business. They're essentially white labeled. According to Ingram, when a partner takes advantage of this resource, on average, deal size increases 25%, because the customer, the Ingram employee knows the right questions to ask, knows how to sort of cross-sell and upsell and size the solution appropriately, and the customer is getting answers to their questions that are more accurate and complete and impressive and so on. So on average, deal size up 25%, 5% of Ingram's partners ever take advantage of this resource. It's available to everybody. It costs, I believe they said, $30 per opportunity. And that's per opportunity. That's not per call. If there are multiple calls per deal you're pursuing, $30.
I would have one on every call.
Right.
My God, exactly. 25% increase in deal size. over many calls, and it only costs you $30. That is a no-brainer, man. That's a no-brainer. That's worth it. That's worth every penny.
I'll give you another one. This one, it's actually the first one I mentioned in the article, is this tool called License Locator. And there are going to be a lot of people out in our audience here who recognize this scenario. You've got all these different software licenses and subscriptions at all your different customers. They've all got different renewal dates and expiration dates, and you've got to somehow keep track of all that information. And I mean, people are using spreadsheets to do this. People, there are companies, if you get big enough, there are companies that have employees who do nothing but manage all of these kinds of dates. So Ingram created this tool called License Locator that sort of automates all that for you. Right now, what it does is keep track of everything for you on an automated basis, and then it can issue alerts, and you've got to kind of go out and do the renewals yourself. They are working on functionality. It's not too far down the road where you will actually just either be able to automate the renewals or do it with a single click through the tool itself.
Yeah, I would think that'd be common. That seems like an easy thing to automate at some point.
At some point, yeah. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of back-end work involved.
Especially if you initially buy and renew the software through the distributor, right. It seems like they could easily automate that process. Right.
So that is what they've got coming. Actually, they're working on that now. Yeah. I mean, again, if you've got somebody on the payroll whose job basically is to do this, there are some big potential savings. Using a tool like License Locator, and the vast majority of Ingram partners do not even know it's there, let alone take advantage of it. And then the last thing I'll sort of call attention to is something that Ingram has been talking about with me actually for a while, which is just custom financing, let's call it. And you know, there's an idea, very widespread idea among Ingram partners, especially if you are a smaller Ingram partner, that they've got financing programs, but the ones that you take advantage of are going to be pretty standardized, pretty rigid, you know, off the shelf. You take it as it comes. And they repeatedly emphasize at Ingram that this is not, in fact, the case, that the line that Anthony Mackel is their senior vice president, the CFO for the US and Latin America. At Ingram. And the line that he likes to use and has been using for the last couple of years is, the only deal we haven't financed is the one we don't know about. Basically, whatever it is you're working on, call us, let us know what you need to do, and we can probably figure out a way to do it. And I mean, there was an example that actually came up at this conference I was at. This was a meeting of their SMB Alliance community, and Anthony Mackel was there, and he said that line, and one of the SMB Alliance members came up to him and said that, I've got this customer, and we're working on a finance plan, and the customer is telling me, I want to spend $2,000 a month on this solution that you're putting. It's like they had a number in mind, and that was the number that they wanted. And the partner hadn't been able to kind of reach that number, you know, through a standardized financing program. And I mean, just right there, in person, face to face, partner talking to Anthony Mackel, they figured something out. And that's the kind of thing that Ingram can do. Whoever you are, whatever the deal is, call them up. Whatever weird finance need you've got, give them a shot at it, because they say certainly that they are very good at coming up with creative answers to financing needs.
You know, the modern day distributor, it amazes me, because it is very possible for one person, just one owner, to operate like a multi-million-dollar MSP just by leveraging what your distributor offers. Your distributor, you bring the customers, you can get your distributor to practically sell the deal for you, spec the deals out, install the deals, and support the deals all on contract basis, all white label. That's crazy.
You know, and this is a bigger conversation, but this thought has been popping into my head for a while. And in fact, I remember talking with some of the SMB Alliance members about this, that model you describe is more possible today than ever before. And I'll add another wrinkle into it. So imagine this scenario. All of the sort of technical sales work is being done for you on an outsourced basis by your distributor. all of the implementation and the on-site work is being done white label by the distributor for you. You don't need to do any of that work. What if you also bring into the picture our friends at Marketopia? So there's this company, Marketopia, that goes out and finds you leads and kind of takes the lead generation process right up to the meeting where you sit down with the customer and close them. The CEO of that company is a guy named Terry Hedden. He's been a guest host with us on the podcast here. So what if you've got Terry Hedden out there doing all your business development? You've got Ingram Micro, let's just say, or Tech Data, doing all the implementation work, all the support, a lot of the tech. What if it's just you sitting there doing the meetings with the customer, signing the deals, and collecting the cash? You can actually run a business that way these days. And in fact, I remember interviewing last year or the year before, I interviewed somebody who had a pretty big managed print business. And as I was talking with him about it, I discovered he barely had any employees because he was outsourcing all the work involved in getting the printers out there and servicing them and so on. He was working through distributors.
If you're good at selling, if you're good at closing deals, right? So when you get on the phone with somebody, you can convince them that you're the one that they want to do business with. If you have the right partnership with the distributor and you're willing to, I mean, it costs you probably more to do that at some point than if you start hiring. But if you're willing to say, you know what, I don't want to grow, I don't want to have HR, I don't want to deal with payroll, I don't want to do any of that stuff. I just want to be me selling a deal and then just letting it fly with partners. You can do that.
Yep.
I think I got my retirement plan figured out, Rich.
I know. It's this thought sort of popped into my head last fall, and I was thinking I'm in the wrong line of work. I just, there's some serious effort involved building the machinery and getting that business up and running. But once it's operating, the hard stuff's being done for you. It's just collect the money.
Yeah, take the money. That's what I want to do, Rich. I just want money to flow into my pockets.
Yeah.
Right. And if I got to make like 2 phone calls a day, that's hard work, man. I mean, like I got to get up in the morning. I got to have coffee. I got to go to the phone. I got to pick it up. Right. And that takes your muscles are involved in that process. Picking it up. Oh my gosh. You got to pick up the phone. You got to put it to your head.
Yeah.
Or you get a headset. I mean, I guess you could get a headset. Then you don't have to pick up the phone, which is, that alleviates the repetitive muscle problems you get in that model. You got to use your vocal cords to talk, but if you can really work through that amount of labor and just have money flowing at you, that seems like a pretty good return on your effort.
It sounds good. It sounds almost too good to be true. Actually.
It might be. I don't know. Yeah. I bet you there. I can't remember which vendor I was. It was maybe at a Cynics show, and I'm just learning about all this crazy stuff that they do that I didn't know about, like all the white label support and the white label installation. I'm sitting there thinking, I'm like, man, there's got to be someone out here who it's just them, and they are making serious coin just hiring the distributor to do everything.
Yeah,
because then you're. There's no limitations of volume, right? I mean, these are gigantic distributors. You could sell as much as you want,
wherever,
because you can support anything, right?
Yeah.
And you don't even have to know all that much about it. You be like, yeah, I got I don't know what that SAN hyperscale converged SFP. You know what? I don't know any about that crap, because you don't need to.
Right. You've got Jerry from Ingram Micro on the phone, and he's answering the questions. He knows. Right. He knows, and he pretends that he's with you, and life moves. I got to tell you, man, that's what it goes. All right, we got 10 minutes. We got a couple more quick stories we got to hit. Q&A, optimizing VoIP. You think VoIP is kind of optimized by now, but maybe not. So this is a Q&A. It's based on a conversation I had with Zane Conkle, who is the CEO of Citricom, a VoIP provider, very MSP specific. I won't go into this in great depth because, like you say, we're starting to run a little bit short on time. But it was just interesting. He and I sat down at one of our SMB forum events and had this conversation. And I was kind of asking him, how, as a VoIP vendor, how penetrated is VoIP in the channel right now from your perspective? And basically, he said, a very large percentage of MSPs these days have some sort of VoIP offering that they are making available to their customers. But he doesn't necessarily see a lot of MSPs sort of doing that in the most efficient and profitable kind of way. And so we got into this conversation about essentially building a standardized stack, really kind of building around one vendor and one set of products, not negotiating with the customer, allowing the customer to kind of tweak this or that. There were various best practices that he shared, essentially, that really allows somebody who's in the VoIP business now to increase the profitability of that service. And I thought it was worth a Q&A piece that appears in the June issue of the magazine, and it's available up on our website now as well. And we'll have a link to that in the show sheet.
I'm going to say this, and this is I think, and I'm willing to bet somewhere in there you guys talked about this, but it seems like if you're not selling VoIP right now, you should. But even if you are, I'm willing to bet that, like, when you walk into a deal, VoIP is one of the things that if it gets cut out of the deal, big whoop, and that's a big mistake. And the reason why is because VoIP is incredible. Is when you sell VoIP, when you're the provider of their phones, you become a very, very sticky person and very difficult to get rid of. Mm-hmm. That is why you want to make sure that VoIP is in your stack, because anybody can get Office 365 from somebody else, and it's very painless to do that. Switching VoIP providers and switching MSPs who are providing your phone service, that is not as easy to do. And the right VoIP vendor can really make you a hero in those cases. So I'm willing to bet that something like that came up.
We certainly have, Zane Conklin and I certainly have spoken about that. I don't remember if it came up in that exact conversation, but I mean, I know he and many other people would tell you that it's actually easier in some ways to go from voice to managed IT and managed networking than the other way around. That, in other words, voice services through VoIP can be a great foot in the door with a net new client to you. Everybody's got phones. If you can sit down with somebody and talk to them about, somebody with a traditional PBX and just the old-fashioned capabilities, and you can talk to them about this whole great new system that is maybe going to save them money, and it's going to allow them to do all of the things that a state-of-the-art VoIP system can do. That can be a relatively easy sale. And then once, like you said, once you become their VoIP provider, you've got this sticky relationship with them, and you can start talking about expanding into some of the other technology-related needs that they have. So yeah, voice is something absolutely everybody should be really paying close attention to.
Yeah, good foot in the door, too. I like the way you put that. I've also been talking a lot at our live shows about another foot in the door solution, which is there's a lot of opportunity to use print these days, desktop or office print, not necessarily like hyper scale, copier machine kind of thing, but desktop print and SMB. You can really change somebody's world and become a hero real quick. And we'll talk about that at a future show because we only got a few minutes left. One last story that you had on here. It's time to get brilliant. Now, you're not targeting this at me, Rich, because let's face it, I'm already there.
Exactly. You don't need this help, but I needed this help. So yeah. And this is a story that was contributed to the magazine by a ChannelPro and MSP from New Jersey named Mike Bloomfield. His company is called Techie Geek. I love that name. And he is interesting because he is one of the still relatively small number of channel pros out there who is in the Internet of Things realm, really kind of rolling out solutions to customers. There are a lot of people who are starting getting ramped up in that area, educating themselves, researching products. Maybe they've got a toe in the water here or there. But Mike's been doing some stuff. A lot of it, in his case, is consumer-oriented. And this is an example of that. He found this platform from a company called Brilliance. It's a smart controller system that you can put into somebody's home to control the lights and the music and the doors and the thermostat and the locks and so on and so forth. He takes you through all the technical details in terms of how it works and what's involved in implementing it. But he has certainly had a great deal of success building essentially a practice around this, taking the Brilliant tool set out to homeowners and essentially creating a money-making Internet of Things service practice.
Good, interesting. Yeah, it's it looks like a pretty interesting read, and lots of things there for people to discover about being brilliant. Everybody needs more brilliance, Rich. Less sodium in their diets and more brilliance, because you got to watch the blood pressure.
I hope people are taking notes, because we've been dropping wisdom on them throughout this.
Right. This is also now a health show, believe it or not, a baking and health show. Rich, we're just all over the place. We are a source of good nuggets of information on all topics.
To review, people, less golf, fewer pictures, more brilliance.
More brilliance.
You're welcome.
Oh, I love it. Fantastic. All right. Well, I think that we're gonna have to wrap up the show here. We normally do a museum and a tech pick, but since we're kind of coming up on the end here, we're gonna skip that. We'll do one next week when we have more time. But Rich, if you were going to grab a crystal ball and look inside of it, and I know you and James Gaskin kind of do this together, what would you see had happened? And you're pretty good at that. What would you see in the future, though?
It's interesting. Like I said, tons of really big conferences going on this week. It's a somewhat quiet week next week. Our friends at the ASCII group have their next event coming up. Our friends at IOTSA, the Internet of Things Security Services Association, IOTSSA, they've got their next roadshow event coming up. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, our own Joel Zadespinner will be at both of those events somehow or another. And then there is, I can't really talk too much about it, but there is some news coming from some vendors I'm pretty sure we'll wind up discussing on the next episode of the podcast.
Good. All right. Well, if speaking of next episode of the podcast, if you'd like to subscribe to ChannelPro Weekly, there's lots and lots of ways to do that. You can hit the subscribe button here on the ChannelPro YouTube channel, and because subscribing doesn't mean anything, you got to actually hit the little bell thing and hope that you get the notifications that when we put something out. So subscribe, bell. You got to do it in that order, I believe. I don't think you can do it in the opposite order. So subscribe, bell. Then you're up to date with us here on YouTube. If video's not your bag, or you don't want to watch the shows live, which we encourage you to watch live and contribute to the discussion and all that kind of stuff, and ask questions, because we'll address them here on the air. I got the chat up. I'm ready to take questions. Not usually about health related things, but if you have health related questions, we will try to address them if we can. But ideally, it'll be channel focused IT things that we will talk about. But they do that. But if you like audio, you can go to iTunes, the Google Play Podcast Store, Stitcher, pretty much where podcasts are aggregated, and you can subscribe there, and then they'll just magically flow down to your device. And whether you're on the plane or in the train or in the car, cutting the grass or doing dishes or whatever you're doing, ChannelPro Weekly will be there with you. Tell your coworkers, your boss, family who, if they are in IT, pets that like computers, or anybody who likes Himalayan salt, apparently now can also listen to ChannelPro Weekly, because we have something for you. So that is going to wrap up episode number 108. I'd like to thank you all for watching and or listening, and make sure you visit channelpronetwork.com for all the latest stories, news stuff. Oh, we have the socials, Rich, the social networks. We are at ChannelPro SMB on Twitter. We are ChannelPro Network on Facebook. I am at Matt Whitlock on Twitter if you want to follow me there. Rich, you are? At Rich Free. At Rich Free if you want to follow him around, because, that's not creepy or anything. But we're all over the place. ChannelProNetwork.com is the website. Make sure you visit that and check out our events, Channel Perform events, events.channelpronetwork.com as well. Thank you very much, and we will see you all next week. Goodbye.